Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a browser extension using React and Plasmo framework. Plasmo framework helps you build browser extensions using JavaScript technologies. So for this particular video, I'm using React and I've built an extension that helps you fill forms on any web page. So let me show you the demo of the extension. All right, so this is a job application page that I found on the internet, and I'm going to try to use the extension to fill this job application page. So here's the extension icon. You click it and then it opens the extension for you. And so first you have to create a profile. So when you create a profile, the extension basically uses the information that you provide, it maps the information that you provide to the form element on the page. So let me show you that how it does that. So first of all, you click on create a profile, and then it takes you to this options.html page, and then you provide the details. So here I'm providing this, providing the name, and just put a random email address. Random phone number, random street name, just use New York, random zip code, and then USA, and save. Right, so we have this profile, so it's essentially saved to the Chrome extension storage. So the information is basically on this browser right now, it's saved to the Chrome extension storage. So I'll go back to the page and I'll click, you can see it's selected the profile for us, and I'm going to now click on fill form. So you can see it filled the form. It brought in the name, so the name that we provided here, the name, the email, and the phone number, basically took the profile information we provided and it filled the form for us. Now it didn't fill other things because we didn't provide, for example, current location. We didn't provide it as current location. Let's say current company, LinkedIn URL, GitHub URL. We didn't provide any of this, so we basically didn't have data to fill LinkedIn URL and GitHub URL. So yeah, that's the extension. Let me show you the code. But before I show you the code, let me show you this. So first of all, in an extension, like when you're building a browser extension, the extension expects you to, for example, Chrome expects you to have a popup.html file. That popup.html file controls, is responsible for this UI. Like this UI that you see here, it's from the popup.html file. It's rendered from popup.html. Now, in Plasmo, because I'm using React, I have a popup.tss file. So at build time, that popup.tss file gets built into popup.html, which renders this particular UI here. Now the next script is content.ts. So content.ts file is needed when you want to manipulate the DOM, the view of like this particular page I'm on right now. If I wanted to manipulate anything on the page, let's say I want to change the background, I want to bring in a button, whatever I want to do, just manipulate the DOM. You do that in your content.ts or content.tss file. Now at build time, that content.tss or ts file gets converted to content.js. Now background.ts is when you're doing long running task. Let's say you want to call an API, like I'm doing, because I'm calling an API in the extension. So if you want to call an API, so background.ts is where you do all that. So with background.ts at build time, it becomes background.js. So options.ts file, I'm using options in Chrome, in browser extension development. Options is basically like this page that you can see here, options.html. It's basically the page that you use to define your options, your settings let's say you want to define a theme, or you want to, so for this particular example, I'm using it for profile management. So you can just use options for settings or any other kind of thing that you want to configure. Now there are other pages. For example, if you want to create a new tab, so there's tabs.html, there's a side panel if you want your extension to open a side panel, there's a dev tools if you want your extension to open dev tools and do anything on the dev tools. So there are other things that you could do, but for this particular demo, these are the key files that I'm using. So how the flow of logic in the application is basically like this. So from the popup.ts file, I send an event which Plasmo gives you, this library, a messaging library that helps you send events. So I send a message or an event from the popup.ts file to the capture.html.css file, which is basically a content. It's a content dot, it is scripts that I use to manipulate the DOM. This is the capture.html is what I use to capture the form element on the web page. And then I capture the form elements, and then I send the information with the profile information that we got from options, right? I send that to the background.ts file. In the background.ts file, I have a handler that would handle the events that you are sending from capture.html, the TSS file. The handler would get the form input and the profile information, and then send it to our backend API. So in our backend API, I have it's a fast API, and it just has one endpoint, and I'm using Pydantic. So I use Pydantic AI to call an LLM with what we captured, right? And then the profile information. And so the AI will basically just do the mapping for us, maps each profile information to the form element that we captured, and then return it back to us. And then in the background.ts file, I then get to call another content script, which is viewForm.tss file, which is a content script. So I call that, and then it fills the values into the form elements basically, and then returns the response to the popup.ts, and then you see that pop-up, that toast message that says form filled successfully. So this is basically the flow. Let me show you the code. Right, so here's the code, and I have the link to the code on my GitHub repo in the description. So the link is there. If you want to go through it, you can just click on the link and then to take you to the GitHub repo where the code is. But just here's the code. So I have the front end and I have the back end. Now in the front end, it's basically, you can see it's just a React setup. I'm using shardcn and I'm using Tailwind as well. So just basic React setup. So in here, you can see I have my popup.ts file. So it's a basic React component, right? It's a React component, and I'm defining the logic and the functionalities and everything there. So inside the popup.ts, when the user clicks on handle autofill, when he clicks on fill form, that fill form button, this is the method that handles the action. So you click on handle autofill, and then inside that particular method, I am calling send to content script. Now this send to content script is coming from Plasmo messaging. So in other words, from the popup.html popup.ts file, I'm sending an event to the content script. Now in here, I have contents folder. Now, if I just had one content file, right, I could just define it as content.ts. But because I have multiple content scripts, you have to name the folder as contents. So that's what Plasmo expects. If you have multiple content scripts, you have to name the folder as contents with an S, right? So that's essentially what I'm doing here. So here, I call the send to content script, and then when I call it, then the name of the script would be capture HTML, and also the Plasmo expects the name here to match the name of the file. So this file is where I will declare the handler that will handle the event and the message that I'm sending from this call. So in here, I call capture HTML. You can see I define exactly like the name here, capture HTML.tss. Now, capture HTML.tss is also a React component, and inside it, I have a use message hook, right? From messaging hook, I have this use message hook. This use message hook is where I define the handler. So I read the message, the body of the message that was sent in send content from popup.ts, and then I capture and I send it to the background. So you can see in background, I'm calling this call agent handler, which here Plasmo expects you to have background messages, and then you define the handler as well. So it should match. So for example, for send content to TS, it should match the content script name. So send to background, it should match the background script name as well. So that's essentially what I'm doing. So in here, so basically I'm doing capture form fields. So in here I captured the form fields and the forms on the page, form elements on the page, and then just form data, and then the profile. So I'm sending profile from popup.ts as well. I just capture that profile and the tab ID and then the Chrome extension ID, and then I send to the background. Now in the background, you can see I have this handler in here. So you can see the handler there. So I just call the API. I call my endpoint, which is running on local on this particular endpoint. So I call the endpoint and I send the content over. And then when the API returns a response, then I call another content script. This time is field form. So this is what I use to populate the form field with the mappings from the API. So here, field form, it's another React component. So I just call it and I pass the information. I use this particular hook, the use message hook, and I read the content of the mappings, and then just fill each field, fill the field, right? Just fill the field here, and then return the response back to the background, and then the background returns it back to capture HTML, and capture HTML returns it back to popup.tss, and then I get to show a toast to show you success or error. Now there's something I want you to notice in content, right? So in content, when you define your content script, which is basically what you use to manipulate the web page, the DOM, this is how Plasmo expects your content.ts file to be configured. So you can configure it to match all URL. So it means this script, this field form script will run when we are on any web page, right? So content.html, you can see is the same as well. It will run on all URL. And so this will run on all URL. If I wanted to limit it to, let's say, only google.com, you just provide google.com URL here, and this script will only run when we're on google.com, right? So you can limit where the scripts can, the pages on which the scripts can run in here by just specifying the pages here. But I'm using all URL because I want this to work on all web pages, all URL. All right, so let's take a look at the backend. Let me show you the backend. So here's the backend. It's a Python project. I'm using Poetry to manage dependencies. And here's the entry. It's just a main.py file. I'm using FastAPI. And here's the endpoint. It's just one endpoint. So I have this call LLM, call agent, and then the payload. And then inside the function, I get to call agent. So here's where I define the agent setup. So this is from Pydantic agent class. Then the model I'm using Grok, and I'm using this OpenAI GPT-OSS 120B, and I'm just using this model. The API key, I'm using the API key. It's inside my environment, like env file. I'm reading it from there, and then I define my retries, so 3 times. So I'm going to, the agent is going to retry 3 times if there's any failure. And the dependency type for the contest, I define it as depths. I think it's inside here, depths. Yeah, profile and field mappings, right? So, and then also the output type, I define it as output model. So the output is a list of field mappings. So each map, so let me just show you. So the field mapping is selector and value, right? The form element selector, and then the value that we are mapping to that particular selector. So that's that. Then the prompt, let me show you the prompt. So this is the prompt. It's just a test that describes what the model should do. I can give it examples, the outputs we are expecting. This is the format. I give it examples, and I just defined a bunch of rules there that I should follow. And that's in a nutshell. So the agent runs and then returns a response. It must match output model. If it doesn't, then we throw an error. Then if it matches, we just return an output. So that's basically the backend. It's just simple and straightforward. All right, before we end the video, let me show you something quickly. So in your front end, when you run your dev, like your build, you should see this build folder, right? This build folder creates a Chrome mv3.dev. Now, for you to load the extension in your browser, you have to provide this path, Chrome mv3.dev, to the browser. So you go to your extensions extension manager page on your browser, and then you set it to developer mode. And then once you set it to developer mode, then you can load the extension. All right, on the browser, you go to Chrome extensions. If you're using Chrome, you just go to your manage extensions page and make sure you have developer mode toggled on. So with developer mode toggled on, you'll be able to load unpack. So you click on the load unpack, provide the path to the build folder, Chrome mv3-dev. And once you do that, you'll be able to load your extension. So this is the extension here. Let me show you details. So this is the path that I provided and was able to load my extension here on the browser. So that's what you need to do to load the extension on the browser. So that's all for the video on how to build a browser extension. The link to resources that you would need, maybe link to Plasmo documentation page, and the link to the GitHub repo, everything I'll put in the description. And do like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.